God in theism is a ultimate reality, ultimate ground, ultimate horizon and of meaning there. So, dear students, if you see, God in theism is conceived these three: ultimate, that is a reality, ground is their basis, and is a meaning, a horizon, and these three are important there. The ultimate ground of being, first one, the ultimate horizon of meaning and ultimate reality. The way God is conceived may be outdated, and some of the terms referring to God may have to be abandoned. But an ultimate point of reference for grasping and interpreting human life and world will always be needed in our quest for understanding and for formulation. So, God's concept may be outdated, but as an existing shadow of God, human being living there, you need that. You have to update your humanness in seeing that God's concept. Are you following me? So that is important there. It's outdated. Now, every day they say, some of mobiles, we have to update everything there. So, everything we have to update in the dress code, in the mind, but in the way of life. As a priest or as a seminarian, we find very much lethargic, or now not so much interest in updating. Yes or no? If I am accusing you, forgive me. If I say yes, then you support me. Why we are not able to update ourselves? Simple thing for me is you take for granted many things. I know, I studied, I live. Yes or no? So when that I is gone, that's why I-thou relationships, you have already seen the philosophy. But here we studied there, we got good marks there, while we left conveniently there, that book also there in the shelf. But in the mind, in the heart level, we are losing that. Yes or no? Why father is today all the time only poking or this one, negatively speaking of this one? No. I am just only sharing my experience about my brothers, and so that they may also be different, not like. St. Thomas Aquinas gives five proofs. What is famous work he wrote in theology? Summa Theologia. There's five proofs, very beautiful books, and it's a very faith-filled books. And a small question and answer. Just look at the library there, 5 books. Or if you want me to bring me tomorrow, I can bring, but only they have to carry that one there. 5 books, that one there. So he gives for the existence of God 5 proofs there. What are they? 5 proofs for the existence of. They are cosmological arguments. The first one is cosmological arguments drawn from the cosmology of the time. You studied cosmology in the philosophy. No doubt in that. That's very good. Who taught for Joseph Matthew, or who taught? Don't confuse us. Huh? Jonas Nekuri. Okay. Like as far as this fathers taught that one. Father Varghese, and epistemology and cosmology. These are the metaphysics. These are the tough subjects, but they have taught us very well. This especially Father Varghese Manimala. These are the subjects. Just they started their career of teaching 30 years of 1985. That one there, but nicely explained there. Okay, now dear brothers, back to this first one. First is cosmological argument. From effects, one is led to the cause, and thus finally one arrives the ultimate cause and prime mover. There is a cause and the effect of that cause, and from that he arrives to the ultimate. So cosmologically he is explaining a proof for the existence of God. So in other words, cosmological argument and ultimate cause for that. And God is a prime mover. In other words, philosophical language, say loud. Unmoved mover, I cannot move him. Stone I can move, but it will come this side, that side, this side. It's unmoved mover, they say. That is a kind of atheistic idea. But prime mover is a primary cause. So you know it in the logic, primary cause, secondary cause, and final. Or in other words, they used to call before that primordial cause, and the cause to exist there, explains there. These arguments may be helpful to those who believe, but the non-believers these proofs seems to be not convincing, unfortunately. You as a believer, me as a believer, it helps me there. So this cosmological argument and ultimate cause and prime mover of God, he explains there. So for the what is that called? For the believer, you can understand, but the non-believer, we cannot convince him there. Why not? Why we can't convince him there is the question there, because he doesn't want that. So now we go to, now after having seen this beautiful, the concept of God, now we go once again to another one. Can we speak of God? Are you following that nicely? So can we speak of God? God exists. Even though God exists, we can know about his existence. Can we speak about God meaningfully, as he is ineffable, infinite, and inexhaustible? Here, can we speak of God meaningfully, because he is ineffable, he is too great, and is sacred, and is ultimate, ineffable, and infinite. You know that opposite to infinite is finite, infinite and finite, and inexhaustible. The classical Hindu tradition here says a negative way. So for them, God, before that, ineffable, infinite, inexhaustible, and various views of the traditions of God. One is the Hinduism. Is a classical Hindu tradition says that we can only say that God is not net, but in other words, neti, no, they call it, no, this one, nothing. So it's a negative way. That's a Hindu way, but they are also explaining that one there. Now biblical tradition, that is also Christian tradition, a positive way, is feeling understanding of God. The Christian tradition affirms that we can speak about God and we can have a positive understanding of God through our knowledge of God is limited. So we can understand, but it is a limited about God. God is not an object to be experienced like other objects. You are tired, no? Then object is take rest. But what type of rest? Going to bed, then you will be tempted when you see the bed. If you go to the room, you will be tempted. But if you go to the nature, you will enjoy the free breeze. It explains there. Objects, this one there. And here, you see, dear students, human persons cannot fully comprehend the mystery of God as it transcends human capacities. This is very much important there. Human persons cannot fully comprehend God, because if you comprehend God, if you understand, then you are limiting there. Oh, I understood God. This is the concept of God. So this is enough for me. You say that one. You are limiting there. You are putting boundaries there. It transcends human capacities. The comprehension of God transcends the human capacities. All these mean that human knowledge of God and its articulation need continuous revision and reformulation. So this is a very important and very simple also to understand. Say for example here, All these mean that human knowledge of God and its articulation and continuous revision and reformulation of God is explained, because it's the mystery of God. So what you have to do the mystery? You have to believe that one there. Now with this about the how to speak about God, in this we can arrive at a little conclusion, namely, all these mean that human knowledge of God is articulation and continuous revision and reformulation. Now we go to the little more deeper way of explaining, namely that knowledge of God. Now, can we speak of God? We understand, yes, we can if we have this. But there are two traditions, negative way, positive way we can think of God there. Now it's a mystery of God explained there. Now the next one is the knowledge of God as analogical. The kind of knowledge of God is called in the classical theology analogical. And what is analogy? Analogy is a comparison between one thing seen as analogous to another. It's not the digital way. It is this we can say analogy. Analogical contrasted there are analogical is a contrasted or opposing the univocal and equivocal. And that's another two terminology. But first one we clarify the analogy. No. So here 1.1.3, the third heading in the first chapter, the knowledge of God as analogical. This kind of knowledge of God is called in classical theology analogical knowledge. Analogical is a contrast with univocal and equivocal. Univocal means that a particular word or a language is used with same meaning. And God belongs to the order of infinite, whereas the creatures belong to the order of finite or finite. So here already we are showing the difference. What is univocal? God belongs to the order of infinite, whereas creatures finite. So already the limit is there. So infinite gulf between the two, permanent gulf is there, finite and infinite. No theological language or God talk in the univocal sense is possible. Because he is finite, I cannot relate to him at all. And he can understand me, he can liberate me, he can save me, I believe in that, but I cannot go. So univocal, only one, that one. And equivocal, second one. Equivocal means that the same word or the language may be used for entirely different things with the consequence that they do not signify anything. Hence the only alternative is an analogical knowledge of God and an analogical way of talking about God. Equivocal means some same word or language may be used for entirely different things that are consequence that they do not signify anything. In other words, he explains there that equivocal means same word, same language they are using there. So God is analogical. But here they are contrasted to the univocal and equivocal. We have seen the explained there. Now in short form is that univocal is a particular word and language used in the same meaning. And equivocal is the same word, the language used for the entire different universe, different things. One word for everything. Whereas here, one word, one language used the same meaning there. So God cannot be that. God cannot be univocal or equivocal. It is analogical. So, dear students, analogy was developed by Aristotle, one of the last Greek philosopher. No, he already developed there. That's why, if you remember my first hour, I said already, no, that Aristotle and Plato's philosophy is being taken into the Christian theology there. So, Aristotle already developed and refined by the scholastic theologians, 11th century, 12th century. Who is the scholastic theologian? St. Thomas of Aquinas. St. Thomas of Aquinas is the one. Analogy is used to explain the ontological relation between the creator and the created, and for the possibility of knowing God by reason. Now it should be easier for you when you speak of that one there. You speak of your previous house and the present rector who speaks nicely about that statement, ontological. What is that? Ontology. You forgot, I will tell him now itself to take your philosophy degree. Who is that? Who taught you? Martin Heidegger. For Johnson. Now our president of this institute. So we used to enjoy, because a very fresh one he started when he came. First he taught us symbolic logic. Then afterwards this philosophy there. So back to our explanation, dear brothers, the theory of analogy was developed by Aristotle and further refined by the scholastic theologians, especially Thomas Aquinas. Analogy is used to the ontological relation. Ontos. What is ontos? Ontos. Being. Ontology. Ontos. The being. Now big B or small b, that is a philosophical way. See, big B is you or me? God. And we are small b's there. We enjoy that one, that concept, because not able to grasp that one there, but slowly understood in the course of time. So here being can be predicated in the proper sense only to God. The being, the big being, I said, no, it is a predicate to the for God. Absolutely it belongs to God. Is that? But all beings share or participate in that being of God. In that being of God, we all share there. We all will get our life there. In other words, he is the creator in the Christian theology, Christian terminology. But here, ontological being is the cause for the other beings' existence there. So possible due to the participation of the beings in God. So we are participating in God. We are explaining in God. So dear brothers, now further if you see that if there is no such correspondence between God and the humans, we cannot know God. If you want to know God, you should have a relationship with Him. Suppose, Capuchins, OFM CAP, I know that is very good congregation, entire world's last 10 centuries almost ruling the whole world of poverty. What is that? Somebody will ask me, yeah, you don't know that is a Franciscan. What Franciscans? But you will explain me, this is what we are having these vows, we are having the simplified life, we challenged the church and church challenged us. Now we are doing church in this part of this dice, in this part of the universe we are working. Like that you explain all Franciscanism. Yes or no? Yes, you and me, we have to learn them, we have to listen to them there. They teach us, we live for that. Of course, you are also living for that, sorry, not only we. Okay, now here to know God, we have to be with God. In other words, He reveals to us. So, one example, Jesus taught us to call God our Father. Call God our Father. Now, this is a predicate that our Father for God. Predicate, you understand now? Predicate. Now here, this predication is neither univocal or equivocal, but analogical. I said no, God is neither univocal nor equivocal, because same one word, different language, different meaning, or one word, same language and same meaning. You understand? So here you should have made more clear. This predication is neither equivocal or univocal, but is analogical. So purifying the concept of the earthly father by removing all its imperfections and limitations, we apply it to God in an entire way, in an eminent way. So our Father, actually this world is sinful, wretched, fragile, weak, but this earth, this world is calling such a holy man our Father. In other words, we are relating with our sinfulness, with all our fragility and wickedness and weakness to such a holy God. He reveals for us. You understand? So, dear brothers, is all these imperfections, limitations, we apply that eminent God, that perfection God, that ultimate reality, that prime mover for the existence of this universe, this creation. So in God, perfection exists. In total wholeness is an infinite manner. In God, perfect wholeness, not holiness, wholeness exists there. And it exists in infinite manner. So creation is the expression and love of God. It reflects rays of God's perfection and beauty. So here, creator, creation was enough. But that races of God are drawn, or graces of God are seen, or races of God are given to this creation. And we see that it illumines us. Hence, from the created order, we can know something about God and we can speak of God. So simple creation, simple our Father doesn't help. We should see the creative spirit, not creative spirit of this technology, creativeness, creative power of God in the creation. And as a creature, you and me have to experience that. We have to explore that, what we experience, we have to send. We have given that race, live that race, throw that race. Good morning, good morning. Alright, good morning, when you say smile and say good morning. Everybody has that problem. Many problems are there. That's why first what we lose in the body? Hair. In the summer I went to some of the religious house here. All gundus are there. Fully shaved. I asked, what is that? Summer father? No, don't say lies, man, because my classmates also did 30 years ago in the theology. Because 2 months holidays, nobody will come, clean shave, so that what is lost may come up. You ask them, if they have that darshan of any God shaving fully, they think that some new hair will come. That's what they are imprinted. You don't know that? Many are telling. Even my own classmates, 1988, 89, 90, 4 of them fully shaved. Then afterwards, rector said, don't do this nonsense here in the seminary. Don't do this one there. But why? Because they want to shine that one there. But that invention of that one there, that not what that called in German, the Gletschkopf, that means Merse Gundu. If the tubelight comes here on my back, you can see, because everything I lost. And years I'm losing. Yeah, enough, 40, 55 years I lived, that is enough. And you also be happy. And don't worry about losing hair and losing weight and losing this one there. And Corona teaches all that, don't lose anything, be firm. That's why closed all the gates, put the mask and sanitizers, all that. These are all taking care of oneself there. If you want to take care of from this sickness, and our Creator takes care of you. Now the next one we can see there, namely God experience. Is it clear so far? Yes, somewhat little clear, Father, but tomorrow more clear. Illumination will come tonight. It will come, provided if you pay attention and read once again there. And if you go away and doing some telephone duty of night duties and so on, then you will not get. But Franciscans will not do that. I am sure of that. Or Jesus, I know my own, or my own has forsaken me by not confessing to me. Okay. Now God experience. If we want to speak of God, we must experience and know God in some way. And what is the some way? The fact that human mankind has some kind of God experience or religious experience is attested in human history. Attested, shown there. What is that? Peoples of all nations and cultures of all times and all places. If you see exactly these words we had in today's reading, I didn't copy from that. Book of Daniel, 7th chapter. All the languages will come and worship me as king. They know it's a revelation of God, but Daniel is in apocalyptic sense, he is speaking there. Because it is related to today's feast. What is the feast today? Transfiguration of the Lord. Okay. Now, if you see that the reality of the religion and religious experience is very complex one. Religion itself is a complex, it makes so much. And a religious experience more complex, but we can simplify it, which has been the object of study by various sciences such as history of religion. Why the religious experience and religion made complexes you and me made with a lot of studies? Then better thing, don't study. Then why you want to become priest? A priest should be a person of knowledge and everything. And no other field on this earth invests lot of manpower, money power than the Catholic priesthood. Your congregation or my diocese or universal church invests lot of its manpower. Me here, so many professors, money power every month. Poor man congregation has to pay to the Franciscans because you are getting food there. But you are not paying. He is also not paying from his pocket. His society is paying. Your congregation is paying. So much invested. I always question myself, then where is that power, money power, manpower? What, Father, of 4 years we are getting ordination, no? So we are getting that money power, manpower. Nothing. It has to be lived. It has to be lived. And it has to be shown to the people. And encourage the people. That's what here. Are we doing or not? Really? We are supposed to do that. Yeah, we are supposed. Now he is very clever. He is correcting this one. We are supposed to do that. But we have to be enthusiastic, with this, a lot of enthusiasm and energy. We have to be the partakers of this formation. Involve ourselves there. That is important, my dear brothers. And that helps us. That's the God experience. God experience not only confined to the church, confined to the community, confined to the everywhere you should have that one there. In the church, that's a mystery we celebrate, we experience. And in the community, that's human spirit, we experience. And that experience, this experience should help you as an individual, wherever you are, whatever task you have taken up, or you are assigned, then that is the real experience of God. And that you should have that one there. And that is the prime purpose of this total, this 12, 13 years of formation for me. And you should have that one. Yes or no? And you should be a person of dynamism. Dynamism not related to the nerve system or mental system or only bodily system. Totality of your humanness, your life, wherever you are, whatever you are doing. That is important for me. So here, the reality of the religion and religious experience is very, very complex one, which has been the object of study of various sciences such as history, religion, anthropology of religion, sociology of religion, psychology of religion. Poor religion, how it is segmented, made into pieces there. History of religion. Yeah, God our Father revealed to Abraham, our father in faith. and our father Isaac and his sons Jacob, they worshipped the mountain. Here is greater than Abraham. I am before Abraham. Time will come, you will not worship any more of the mountains, because you will worship on the truth. Truth is knowing God. I am the truth. Who said to whom? Jesus said to his audience there in the Gospel of St. John. So, history of religion, anthropology of religion. From where do you come? Anthropos, study of the human origin. Sociology of religion. What is your culture? And psychology of religion, psyche. It is because of that that experiences became a little more complex. They have their own different definitions of religion and religious experience, all these branches, which are not wrong, but unfortunately they are only confined to only their subject. There is wrong. You understand? One may define religious experience as that intimate, immediate awareness of being touched or grasped by the divine. That is important. Immediate, intimate, person to person, immediate now. Awareness of being touched or grasped, grasped intellect, touched with the physical, touched by the divine. The experience of something very strange like the burning bush. Let me go and see what is this funny situation. Bush is burning, but no ashes are coming there, no smoke is there, still it's blazing, burning. Do not come to this place because it's a holy place. Put off your sandal and come. Then he feels that. Then afterwards he listens to that. Then he questions that burning bush. You understand? So it's an experience, Exodus 3rd chapter 2 to 3, 2 to 6. That is the real religious experience of Moses there. So expressed only in a symbolic, poetic and mythical language. Mystical language, not mythical. A mythical language. Poetic. That's why, what did your patron saint said? That from a song. Brother? Sister moon, brother sun. Then again famous prayer. Lord, peace prayer. Lord, make me an instrument of peace. That's a universal. All the religions, when St. John Paul II called for a meeting at Assisi to pray for the peace, all the religions were called there and said, explained there. So it's a personal words from your saints, but it is appealing to me and to you every time there. Expression. Then theology uses the ordinary language in an extraordinary way. So this, as God is divine and totally the other, absolutely incomprehensible, transcendent, God cannot be fully understood and God experience cannot be articulated in ordinary day-to-day language. So this God experience we cannot confine to one language, one song, one poem. But unfortunately now everybody won't have their own way. One will have nature, one will have a cross, one will have this, all that. It is good. But only thing is, don't fix on that. You understand? This way of experience helps you, that's all. Open to the experience. Make an experience of yourself. Assessment. You understand? What are we teaching here? We are teaching theology, theologizing, but should have your own way of understanding and theologizing and relation to God and experience of God and expression of God to others. So, theology uses an ordinary language in an extraordinary way. So, the religious experience and the symbolic language. Now, we have seen here three concepts. This one there. First, the question of God, then the existence of God. Can we speak of God at all? And the knowledge of God as analogical. And above all, the God experience explains there. Now, only one point is remaining in this first chapter, that is the religious language as a symbolic language. Then we complete that. What is theology or the question of God? With that. So, introduction, general introduction, and introduction to the course, and the 9 chapters, and the concept of God, existence of God, experience of God, and God as analogical and God experience. All this. So just reflect over it and read and gather the questions, and it helps us. I think first day is a fruitful day. No? Very good. Thank you. I to explain to you about the general introduction, general background for the why you have to study this theology, for theology, and what is the relationship between theology and philosophy, and how philosophy is slowly taken to theology, and who influenced whom, and how and why, and became one, questioning in theology. And with that little introduction and the two components, that's the faith and reason, is clear, but faith and belief in theology, we have explained that. Now, why do you want to study theology? That's a question. So, dear students, theology is a part of the religious and priestly formation. It's a part of your formation, your curriculum of this life. And here in this course, especially Introduction to the Theology, we will be dealing these subjects which I explained in the last class. Now, with this background, what does this course contains and what does it intends to give to the students of theology? That is the important thing to be observed there. So, from your philosophical and philological background, the word theology is derived from two Greek words, theos and logos, God and word or talk. So, theology means God talk or science of God. So, that's the fundamental clarity you're supposed to have at the beginning of this course. Theology, we know theos and logos, that is study of our God, but it is a simple answer. You might have told that in the philosophy until now, but now your perception of God and perspectiveness of God, you should be little more enlightened. That's why here we have one more. Theology means God talk or science of God. However, in the case of theology, unlike in other sciences, the subject matter of investigation is God. So, in the theology, we are going to investigate something. About whom? About God, who is essentially a mystery. You can investigate, no doubt in that, you are free, but where you arrive, are you intend to get an answer for this? You have to wait, because God is a mystery. If God is a problem from the philosophical studies, you know, every problem has got a solution. Whereas a mystery is no solution, but one has to believe in that mystery. So, the question is, can we have science with God as subject matter of investigation? Can we speak of God as He is? Can we speak of God without accepting Him in faith? These are the very fundamental questions concerned about God. You are free to have investigation. You are free to believe the mystery, but you should have these three questions. What are they? The first one is matter of investigation. Who is that investigation? Which is the matter in this investigation of God? Then, can we speak of God as He is? Then, can we speak without God, without accepting in faith? For example, the second question we can see Exodus 3rd chapter. the first 14 verses, that God as he is. When Moses asked God, if Pharaoh asked me, who has sent you here? Why did you come here? What you have to say? Who I am whom I am. In other words, నేను ఉన్నవాడిని అంట. That's in Telugu version. But it's a very so much richness of theology and philosophy is there in that statement of revelation of God to Moses there. Now our main concern is, dear brothers, does not faith contradict scientific objectivity? How far is the reason or intellect capable of comprehending and communicating existence and nature of God? In other words, here shortly we see, we speak of God without accepting in faith is not possible. So comprehension and communication, unless until you are comprehended or you have comprehension of an idea, a book, an object, a film, or a dress code, you have understanding of that. Otherwise it doesn't understand, we can't go. For example, I always question, why do you have different dresses as religious? You have Franciscans, you wear the Franciscan habit with this thread or the girdle we call it, but another one, Camellias, they have cross here. Another SCGs, they have cross, wearing small cross in their neck. And so many congregations. Why? Because you want to be identified yourself that you belong to a particular congregation which has started in this church for the church, and as a member of that you are identified. And you, MPH, and me as a Dyson, we don't have any dress code, but we do have one code of white cassock. As they have in all the feast days, these Capuchins, what color they put, you know? What color you put? Say truth. No, don't say white. See, listen to them. Yeah, identity of Franciscan, not simple habit, color. Because with that color and sackcloth you put and went there, and you shake to the whole church, the universal church, your patron. Then Pope said, okay, welcome them. You know the story and the historicity, I don't need to explain as a Dyson priest. If I explain also, it will be only something learned. But I also trained with the Franciscans. I have a very close relationship with the Franciscans also. I enjoy it, as you are enjoying as MPH living with them. Yes or no? So he's doubting to say, because you may not allow him to live there. Okay. How far is the reason or intellect capable of comprehending and communicating God? Now here, how is the Christian concept of God different from the concept of God in other religions? So we are learning the process, and here about the God we are studying, I said, in the theology. And now this God in all the religions, they have God. For example, yesterday they had a big Bhumi Puja of Ayodhya, Rama Mandir. Throughout the world they are watching. And they are taking the privilege and prestige of building that, to show that their God's concept there. Yes or no? So, but what is the difference between the God in other religions and Christianity? Can we speak of a Hindu theology or an Islamic theology? Because theos and study of God, yes, according to their understanding. But for us, our God is a revealed God, self-revealed God. So we have something to study, is the subject of that. So there is a theology, but we have depth in this theology, that which you are studying, which you are in this 4 years you will be, say, you yourself will have the comprehension of God, that God. That is the, and it is not a fanatic or fundamental theology, making a fundamentalist. He is making an universal person to accept the concept of God. Are you following me? So that is very, very important there. Now, can we speak of a Hindu theology or Islamic theology or a Buddhist theology or a tribal theologies? Nowadays it is coming up. If you say yes, how far they are related to each other? That is important. So, what is the role and influence of culture in theology? What do you mean by the experience of God? Can we communicate the experience of God which you have, which I have? How to evaluate the truthfulness or the authenticity of the Christian experience of God? Truthfulness and authenticity. So slowly we are narrowing. In other words, we are showing how this God is revealed, how we are able to understand, how we are able to follow Him. Is there room for contextual or local theologies in this theology? What is the role and influence of culture in theology? Can we speak of an Indian theology? Now the question comes there. Because we will be dealing also in this course, the last chapter, how it is developed. But try to have the universal concept of the theology and try to understand that. Then later on we have you can see the theology in other religions. And after that you can theologize. That's when the first itself I said, no, context, pastoral and social theology. This is all has to be taken into consideration. Now with this concept we go to the first chapter. But before first chapter, as I told you before, this course I have divided into general introduction. First we have seen general introduction for theology, I said. General introduction for introduction to theology. There are two. You understand? So why, Father, one is enough? No, that's one. Yes, one is enough, but we need rice, little curry with gravy, without curry, and above all, and this part, they have two important things. Towards the end, they eat here. In Andhra, what is that? Curds or buttermilk. Must for this Andhra. Why they eat? No, I am also an Andhra. But this tongue and this mind is accustomed for everything. Universal food, anywhere. Go. Why I used to analyze? Because we eat a lot of spicy, that's to subside that. Now we understood. To manage that. Not outside, inside. Otherwise it will create another commotion. And you have to do this liberating room. They said. So they say, where did you go? I went to Liberation Hall, they say. What is the Liberation Hall? Bathroom, toilets, that one there. Liberation. Yeah, you are getting liberated, no? That one. Okay. Now, first chapter, dear brothers, we see what is theology. And second one, various definitions of Christian theology. And third one is theology and other sciences. Fourth chapter is functions and goals of theology. And fifth one is sources of theology. And sixth one is theology and religious experience. And seventh chapter is development of theology, how it is developed, historical. And eighth one is emergence of local theologies. And the ninth chapter is theologizing in Indian context. My God, this is a small course of only 30 hours, but 9 chapters, already some are doubting there. How it will be and so on there. So it is easier when you divide into many chapters, at least something you can understand. If I put in 5 chapters, then you will not able to grasp them. Yes or no? That's why you also, when you give homework, you know, introduction of first professor, doctor, so and so, like that. Then introduction, I am a Capuchin, MC, MS, MSFS or SCJ or this one, Holy Family and Holy Spirit, all that. Then after that you write the introduction, then glittering, contents, then after that content. Then towards the end you sit, you are supposed to write one important, that you will not write. What you are supposed to write when you write a paper? From where you have taken, what you have did, what is that? References or bibliography. Before that, brothers will write nice conclusion. Very nice conclusion they will write. Thank you very much, Father. I have learned so much things from this, like that they will write this one. Yes or no? You're not experienced? Oh, you're feeling shy to say. Okay, okay. Don't worry. I will not tell to your philosophy professors who are here. Because I don't meet them, I don't live here also. For your good. Okay. Now, shall we go to the first chapter? So, what is theology? That's the first chapter. Theology is generally understood as the discourse on God or God-talk. That's important there. So, discourses, as you see in the slides there, discourses on God. So, this is a discourse, a theological course, discourse. So, course means you are only just you have to receive what I say. Discourse means you can talk, you can discuss. You understand? So, discourses on God or God talk. But in today's world of secularism, anti-agnosticism and atheism, God's existence cannot be taken for granted. Who said God? Who is God for you? Who is God for you? Tell me. Who is God for you? Say anything, I accept. God is the Father, you say every day, you say in the morning. Oh, okay, you are Franciscan, so Francis' father is the Father, not God the Father. Or that? Francis is your friend and God is your Father. Very good. So, God is my creator. God, in whom I can trust. A God who liberates me. God who consoles me. God who accompanies me. These are the definitions or understanding or concept of God according to you, according to your own understanding, which are not wrong. But they should have a connotation, a connection. The existence of God you should see. That's why discourse on God or God talk. Now here you cannot take God's existence. Where is God? Where is God? Everywhere he says omnipresence. There are three, omnipotent, omniscient and omnipresence. So there are three concepts of God now. There are traditional theological explanation. So this God is everywhere. So God's existence. But unfortunately, one cannot take it for granted because you want to experience that. You understand? He is everywhere, no doubt in that. Does God exist? Yes. Very good. If God exists, can we know anything about God? Something is very critical, very analytically is analyzing and answering. Real philosopher. Then can we speak of God meaningfully as we speak about God? Understand the sentence please. Can we speak of God meaningfully as we speak about God? You are not understanding. Okay, I'll tell you. Can we speak of God meaningfully as we speak about God? So, God, He is a Father, He is a liberator. You are speaking everything. Just one words. But are you speaking meaningfully? Is that words are meaningful for you? Then we are doubting. So he's already noting it, which is not wrong. You understand? So these are the terminological meaning. So can we speak of God meaningfully as we speak about other subjects and objects? Light. For example, now I look dark. Already I am dark enough. Now I became more dark without light. Now you can see me. Not because I put on light for me. I put on the light which you have provided. This one there is an object to see me. As a subject I am sitting here, but I need object to see me. There are objects and subjects. That's why here we speak about other subjects and objects. Can we speak of God like that? So these are the little more the questions need little more intellect and thought process and reason to answer. But don't go reasoning too much now. Now be here with me. We understand this one there. So now the question of God. We have said the first one. So now next one is the existence of God. There are three views about the existence of God. On the existence of God, there are generally three views, namely atheism, agnosticism, and theism. Though within each of these views, there are innumerable schools and divisions and opinions. For example, the first one, atheism. What is atheism? Atheism, yeah. He did not have his breakfast, try a tea break also. Speak loud, man, say. What you said it correctly? Huh? One who? Nobody exists. I am for myself. How did he come? I came. I am living. So he doesn't believe in God at all. Hold on to that. Atheism is a stance that rejects the existence of God. Among the atheists also included some of the philosophers and social scientists and psychologists. There are there, all the intellectuals. That is important here. So, atheist is the one who rejects the existence of God, doesn't exist for me. He rejects that. And there are certain intellectual groups are there, or people under this rejection of existence of God. Namely, first one, some philosophers. Who are the philosophers? Nietzsche, for example, Friedrich Nietzsche. God is dead, he writes, no? So, he wrote in one of the way on the wall in the university or somewhere, God is dead. And somebody removed the God, Nietzsche is dead, somebody wrote there. That one there. Just fooling of themselves. So, here psychologists, philosophers, social scientists. For example, Albert Camus and Karl Marx, the father of socialism. Then Friedrich Nietzsche and Sigmund Freud, a psychologist. For them, the reasons for the denial of God is vary. From this, Karl Marx, since society is suffering, there is no God. Since my psyche is not able to understand no God, Sigmund Freud said. And since I am not able to understand this existence and this difficulties, no God, Nietzsche and Albert Camus. So their denial of God is varies. They are not the same. Are you following me? According to some, there is so much evil, unmerited suffering, injustice in the world that one cannot believe in a good and loving God because of this evil, because of this suffering. That's why they reject the existence of God. Many of the atheists argue that God is a projection of human mind created by religions and powerful groups by which they subdue the powerless of the poor. Very good, what that called explanation, no? Explain to you once again. Many of the atheists argue that God is a projection of human mind. In other words, human mind has created that. Then, created by the projection of human mind, created by the religions and powerful groups which subdue the powerless and the poor. So, powerful groups have created this the power of God, the presence of God, to show that the powerless, why they are suffering there. For example, psychologists like Freud, the God who controls and provides everything is created by human psychic in response to its need for love, safety and security. So, Freud is explained why he rejected God. The power of God is there, but this is a love, this is the security, this is a safe. So, I am enjoying this one there. So, he is not using the term of God, but his content is there. You following me? Now, we go to the next one is antagonist. And here, atheist rejects the existence of God. Philosophers, these three explained there. And now, reason for the denial of God, such as so much evil is there, unmerited suffering and justice is there, injustice is there. It's because of that, no God. I don't need God. So for atheists, projection of human mind created by the religions, God means. Now we go to the next one is the antagonists, the second type. What do they say? The antagonists and the agnostics. The agnostics simply say that they do not know whether God exists or not. After all, for them the question of God's existence is not an important one. With or without God, the world will go on as it is. It must be noted here, and even some of the religious traditions of non-theistic Chakravas in Hinduism and Tharvada of Buddhism. So for them, whether God is there or not, this world is going. Nobody is controlling. Nobody is putting stop. So let it go. Why we need again another figure of God? Antagonist. This is the explanation for them there. And this is explanation, these two, Hinduism and especially in Buddhism, these two types are there.